People think that high-performing individuals have it all together. They're strong and they can lead and they're tough. And actually, it's the reverse. They're the most vulnerable. When you look on social media, everybody's doing well. Everybody's in the selfie world, got the best pics. I'm on vacation. I don't this, I don't that. I'm doing this. You know, one of the few times I see people in their natural element, you should try it sometime. It's like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I'm driving to the office. I watch people's faces and I'm looking at the dread. Or when it's 5:30 in the evening, I'm looking over at the person. I'm looking at their face. I'm like, whoa, we are in performance mode. We perform so much. And it's like, where can we just be free in me? And that, man, it can crack you. You will perform so much that you become a stranger to you. You don't even know who you are to yourself anymore.
When you were at a point where you were trying to figure it all out, and I've heard a little bit of your story of
Sure.
how you someone kind of mentioned that you could play pro, and it changed the way you thought, and it went from a dream to a goal. I'd love to hear that story for our listeners, but I'd also like to incorporate how faith served as a guiding post for you.
Okay, so let's just try to combine both those stories right there, right? You know, growing up, I had a unique drug problem because my mom would drug me to church Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all day, like old school Pentecostal. I don't know if you know about them old school, brother churches, those, like, and so, we're in church from like 9 o'clock to like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, go downstairs, eat, come back up for the late service, right? It was all day, but it was all ahead knowledge. I learned how to play the game so well. I learned how to change, just live my life on information and not transformation. And what happened was that the second year playing with the Rams, one day I feel a pop in my right foot, and I'm thinking, okay, it's not a serious injury, it's just like a sprain or whatever. But when I try to stand up, I can't. Now, football was always a dream for me. Second year or the third year playing, I was at Indiana. Somebody walked up to me, and now I look back on it, it's like, you're going to go pro. I'm like, whatever, they said, no, you're going to go pro. And, I'm draft day in the NFL, third pick in the fourth round, 87 pick overall. You can't make this stuff up, right? And I'm playing my dream, my goal, my aspirations, my identity. Everything was nestled and grounded and rooted in sports. Been playing sports since the second grade, right? That was my identity. So when I feel that pop, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm a Big Ten player. I'm tough. I'm getting back up, but I can't get up. And then I go get x-rays. And Clarence Shields, one of the top surgeons in Los Angeles at the time, said, son, that's the 5th metatarsal Jones bone fracture. And he looked me dead in the eye. He said, your season and possibly your career is over. And I went back to the dorm room and everything changed because football was, as I mentioned, my identity. Now I don't have anything. So I'm like standing with no foundation, no balance, no reference point, right? Football was my reference point. I don't have a reference point now. Like, what do I do? Okay. And, people often look for that reference point. And in a moment of desperation, well, actually, I was angry. I'm like, God, there's no way you can be real. Because if you were real, you know that I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy, right? I do all the good things I were taught, but no answer. And then finally, on the second or third day, I dropped to my knees and I said, Jesus, I need you. I, I, I promise you, if you don't step in, I'm not going to make it. And in that moment, it was like a breath of fresh air. And it's like, I have a plan, a purpose for your life that's greater than the NFL. It's greater than you. And what he wanted was to be the cog in the wheel. He wanted to be the little round thing that holds all the spokes together. Earlier, you had mentioned about life and how things are nestled. But what's just as important is that the order in which they are nestled in. And God became the little round thing, the cog that holds all the little spokes together. And in that, it actually creates balance. It creates power like your core. It is absolutely amazing. And I might say the battle, the battle is remaining Christ, remain at the center to fortify, to purify, to electrify all of my motives, actions, and thoughts. That's my battle.
Now, with the Rams. You overlap Marshall Falk at that time.
No, so actually, Marshall and I crossed paths a little later.
Okay.
In 1995, I was with the Colts, and Marshall was on that team in
Yep.
95, going into 96. We were both there at that time. Great guy, by the way.
One of my favorite players to watch because in 1998 or 90, it might have been 99, I started playing fantasy football
Really?
for the
Okay.
first time, and I got him on the first time, and this guy's on my league, and I'm a kid, I'm fresh out of college, I'm 21 years old,
Right.
and Falk is just lighting up the NFL. I mean,
Mhm.
just doing things that nobody was doing, and he was so fun to watch. So it's great just watching players like that, and to be able to learn from players. I know that you have a growing, a mental growth mentality. So you tried to learn from all the people around you, but you
Right.
also tried to be the energy that you wanted to put out into the world. And I've
At
heard
the
you
same
talk
time.
about that, and I love that because you're surrounded by all these radiating personalities, these people that are doing big things, but you're staying centered. Your cog is right there in the middle. You know who you are, you know what you stand for,
Right.
and then you're just riding through and learning from everybody. What were some of those lessons that you learned early on that really directed you into that next path?
Well, you know what? Let me address what you just said because that's so important. And I never really looked at it that way. But in that locker room, I mean, you cannot get more of a actual type A driven, high performance personalities, egos, mindset. They were the top of the top, the la creme at high school and college, and we're all just in one locker room. And if you're not careful, you could miss a lot because you can learn it. One of my mentors playing football, his name was Jackie Slater, and this guy played like 20 years in the league. You know, and one of the lessons I had so many lessons, but one of the lessons that Jackie taught me was that you always have the proper perspective of what you're doing and where you're at. You have to have the right perspective because if not, you can get caught up. So let's just look at football, okay? From a fan's perspective, football's a game, right? From the player's perspective, football is a job. From the owner's perspective, football is a business. So Jackie had the right perspective because we would come to practice in sweatsuits and sleep in our eyes. And, we had gum and, because we just left a party. We went right to practice. But Jackie would come to practice every day in a suit and tie. Now, we are athletes, we're jocks, but he would come to practice, shoes shined, nice slacks, suit and tie every single day. And one day I asked him, I said, Judge, that's his nickname. It's a long story behind that. Judge, why do you come to practice every day? And what he said shocked me. He said, Brother Harper, that's how he talked. Brother Harper, this is a business. And I have to have the same mindset as the owners. And that kind of flew over my head. But I've noticed that the people who do well in business and life have the same mindset of the person or the individuals at the very top. They don't play their role. They think like the owner thinks. Now, when you have a person who thinks like the owner, now when it's time to make cuts, when it's time to make decisions, when it's time to do promotions, I'm like, that person understands me. That person feels my pain. That person knows what's going on. Their pulse is my pulse is their pulse. I can grow with that individual. Having the right perspective is huge. And there were tons of stories I've learned from the older players just like that just blessed and changed my life.
What a great mentality. I mean, you're either acting like an owner or you're a borrower.
Yeah,
And when you're an owner, you're there to be a part in a partnership.
right.
And that is an enormous benefit. It's funny when I have two sons and both of them play high level athletics. My oldest son's a Division I college soccer player. My youngest son's playing for a Major League Soccer academy in a high level of play. both
Mhm.
of them have that mentality. I used to tell them when they were super young, they would come out hair disheveled, shirts untucked. I'd be like, "Hey, get back in the house, do your hair, make sure it looks good, tuck your shirt in." And it would be we'd drive on the way to the field, and I'd say, "Look good, feel good, play good. We
Yeah.
need to look our best. We're going out to perform. When you go out to perform, you need to look your best.
Yeah.
That'll help you feel your best. And when you're out there, it'll help you play your best."
Yeah.
And I must have told them that like 1,000 times. And it wasn't always popular, by the way, as a father, but
Right.
you know how it is. Like you do the best you can to help them get that mentality. But it sounds like Slater Judge was leading by example and teaching everybody how to think like an owner, and by looking good, he felt good and he was leading by example, which is really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. That amongst other amazing examples, amazing stories. And what is so awesome about that is that the lessons that were taught in the moment, you don't catch in the moment sometimes. So your sons aren't going to catch that now, but years later, it'll click. When I would was playing at Indiana, Coach Mallory was a stickler. So if the meeting started at 3 o'clock, okay, if you weren't in the meeting at 3 o'clock, God help you. It was Armageddon. It was a mini Armageddon. In fact, he wouldn't let anyone in. And I would watch Coach Mallory. He would sit in his office till 2:59 and 30 seconds. Of course, I would beat him in. And then he would get up and walk into the meeting. Being on time is just such it, I, it's just it was just that engraved was so strongly engraved in me because it actually exudes respect and everything else. But those little small little lessons like that of having your shirt tucked in, your jersey tucked in, and if you look at all the top programs in the country, they're the same way. Saban, he would yell at the players, "Why aren't your shirt tucked in?" Like, what the heck? What's that got to do with anything? Well, because if you don't do the small things right, you won't do the big things right.
Well, what's the word? The word is discipline, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And at the end of the day, it's a word that we've forgotten so often in how to raise strong leaders, how to build the next generation. Discipline is a big challenge, but it's a
yeah,
fundamental core reference, whether it's the discipline in your faith, your discipline in how you show up to work. This is everything. And it sounds to me like they were building the disciplines that you used to both educate yourself and learn and then execute once in the NFL and then beyond the NFL into your career.
yeah. Execute at a high level. This thing is fluid. Okay. And what I mean by fluid is that it's always changing. You're either A, growing, or you're dying. It's fluid. And so you have to be on your game, or you have to stay on top of that each and every day. And unfortunately slash unfortunately, you know what? It doesn't always happen, but you always have to push yourself. And at least when you slip, you know what the standard is. I mean, perfect example. I mean, I'm like fully transparent. Yesterday, I came in the office with like an Indianapolis Colts uh, shirt on, pullover, right? And I'm like, mm-mm. I had to check myself on that, even though I wanted to kind of work out in the morning, so this is my battle. It's like, you know what? No, no, no. Put a jacket on when you come in the office as much as possible. So even when you slip, you have to have the, fortitude and the grace to catch yourself and then get back up to where you need to be and just keep moving and keep growing and keep progressing. And as long as you got that fight in you, okay, when you look up, you can get up, you'll always grow. It's when the slack becomes a habit, when the slack becomes a way of life, when the slack becomes, this is who I am, this is my new level, that's when you're in trouble.
It's that relaxation, it's that comfort,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
when you get too comfortable, it's really difficult to continue to grow because
Right.
comfort doesn't yield growth. Uncomfortability yields that growth.
Right.
And it's easy to get a little comfortable. You hit a level of success and you go, this is nice. Maybe I'll get that workout in at a random part of the day and I'll wear the sweatshirt. And your intent was good,
Right.
but you caught yourself because your standard and your values were different. And
Right.
you had to remind yourself, which is what we all have to do on a regular basis.
Mhm. Which is why, and I had actually made this discovery some time ago, so much that I've set a meeting up within 2 weeks with an individual, and that's going to be his purpose in life, which is why high performance athletes, high performance leaders, high performance speakers, they always have a coach. They always have somebody to push you past you. They always have somebody to just antagonize the heck out of you. When you play sports, and I can tell you play sports just by your energy and your actual demeanor, was the coach always satisfied with you? Coach was never satisfied with you. He was like, good job, yeah, yeah. But next week, and then he'll just get on your butt for the next week, right? Because he's pushing you past you. Because we have the propensity, we have the 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 tendency to exist in the comfort zone. And one of the dangers about success is having just a little bit that where you can rest. And when you start to rest in your success, and I've been a victim of that, you get so much trouble. So my encouragement for entrepreneurs, because I don't want to lose the spirit of this program, my encouragement for entrepreneurs is always have somebody to push you in the 212. It's one of my examples is that water is water at 211 degrees. At 212 degrees, water boils. Boiling waters change the world. The challenge with water is that it needs an outside of irritant to push it to the 212, and that's the heat. So you have to have heat or pressure in your life to elevate to the 212. Get yourself a coach.
You know what's also great about that example is when you have heat, when you have pressure, it forces you to your knees. I mean, it's that's isn't that powerful? Like the thing is, sometimes you actually have to be doing something to remember and remind that the word surrender doesn't
Yes.
mean control; it means to let go
Yes.
and to actually say, "Hey, this stuff is out of my hands. I'm doing the best that I can, but I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I'm struggling." And when you push yourself to that limit, the breakthrough is like astronomical. And
Yes.
that's what you're saying. That
Yes.
212, if you're running at 212, you're gonna be forced to your knees at times, and
Yes.
it's gonna be better for you because it'll remind you who the centerpiece of your life should be.
Yes. It actually creates a brokenness, not humility. It's a difference between being humbled and being broken. Being humbled is when you're conscious, logical, and rational, like, okay, God, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry. I repent. But when you're broken, okay, when you are broken before God, what happens, okay, is that it is absolute surrender. There's nowhere to go. And you just fall down, you fall apart. That's a breaking. Now, that's a spiritual law as well, because when a bone is broken, if it's set, when it heals, if it's set right, man, it comes back even stronger. The challenge in life is that we're broken often and we don't have the spiritual element. We don't have God in our life to set that bone back the way it should be set. It's not set the way it sets. From that wound comes anger, bitterness, rejection, resentment, and just jacks it up. It never heals right, and it's affected and it's infected. But allowing those breaking moments, and when you look in the Word of God, man, and you see some great individuals that had those moments of breaking, wow. And then they come back totally different, stronger, faster. King David, faster Solomon at the very end in the book of Ecclesiastics, meaningless. They always come back stronger, faster, better. You need a coach or a situation and circumstances to shape you, but yet you need it also to break you.
I'm I couldn't agree more, and I'm always shocked at how powerful the words "I believe in you" can be to somebody. When you're a coach, and some of us are just natural coaches. It's something we've done our whole lives, and it's hard to
Right.
explain because you see greatness in somebody sometimes before they see greatness in themselves. They could be
Sure.
listening to this show right now
Right.
and not know how amazing they are, but we're the people that are out there every day, even in small interactions, saying, "Hey, I see that energy. You keep putting that good energy out into the world, good things are going
Right.
to happen to you." And that tiny little trigger might have pushed them over from 211 to 212.
You know what? You would be shocked of the importance of what you just said. You know, People think that high performing individuals, they have it all together. They're strong and they can lead and they're tough. Uh, and actually, it's the reverse. They're the most vulnerable because they're out there alone. People say, leadership is lonely. Yes, it can be extremely lonely. Like, who do I confide in? Who do I talk to? Who do I have a moment with? Right? It's like, no. You're like, oh, I'm a motivational speaker. Okay, so who do I get motivation from? Who do I talk to? Who encourages me? Who encourages the motivate? Who motivates the motivator? Oh, you're a business leader. Okay, well, but it can be extremely challenging now, which is why athletes have groupies. Think about the psychology behind that. I'm an athlete. I already know what you're about, but yet I need your encouragement or an actual uh, uh, CEO, a CEO. Why why does a CEO have an entourage? Why would a CEO have people around him or her like, hey, this and this and this and this and this? We need it. They need it. What you need in life, I believe, is you need a good coach. You need a mentor, which is a tour mentor. Okay. You need your contemporaries and you need that cheerleader. You have to have that cheerleader.
Yeah, it's huge. I couldn't, again, I completely agree. And it's funny because when you're actually pushing yourself, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're even there's a lot of people that listen to this show that are moms that are full-time working moms, and they come home from work and then they do all the normal stuff that somebody has to get done in a day, or dads that are trying to coach their kids' teams, and you're pushing the limits. The more you push the limits, the more you find yourself alone, and the more you
Yes.
find yourself alone, the more you actually need faith, and the more you actually need to remember that those things you just mentioned, those people in your life are mandatory. You got to have someone pushing you past your limits. You got to have someone that believes in you. You got to have someone that you can call when stuff's hitting the fan.
Right.
And it's hard, and that's why building relationships, to your point about the bone, when you break a bone and it comes back stronger if it's reset, the example you gave, relationships are no different. The
Mm-hmm.
best relationships you have are the ones, if you think about a marriage, I've been married 22 years. I can tell you every day isn't perfect,
Right.
but through each of those little cracks and challenges, we come back stronger. So when
Right.
something really tough happens, dropping our 14-year-old son off at an academy to live away from us was a challenge in our family. Uh,
Woo! Man, that's
yes,
tough.
that's
That's
tough,
tough.
right? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, instead of breaking, our family united. Our oldest son became a better leader. Our oldest son started reaching out to him a little bit more, was more of a big brother to him when he came home, and stopped beating his butt as much and started actually loving him a little bit, right?
Right. Right.
Mom and I united, and she trusted in me to make good decisions, and I trusted in her that it was going to be okay.
Right.
And but that breakage in our family, that challenge, is something that I mean, it goes back to your analogy on the bone. And with strong relationships, they have to have these cracks, these challenges. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how you build the good stuff. That's how
Yeah.
you get to the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You are 100% correct, and which is the opposite of what is taught in this world system. Because this world system says, hey, everything's going to be good, everything's going to be great. Let's be fine. Let's do this and that and this and you know what, and which is uh, which is what I hate. Okay, uh, I'll just say you detest, right? Someone was teasing me earlier about my Spanish, which I'm horrible at, but it is what I don't like about life, and in particularly social media. Because we talk, I mean, when you look on social media, everybody's doing well. Everybody's on that level. Everybody's in the selfie world, got the best pics. I'm on vacation. I don't this, I don't that. I'm doing this.
That's all they'll post. That's all they'll even post. They won't even post the in betweens.
Well, hold on for a second. When you go to church, it's the same way. When you go to your office, it's the same way. At, at work, one of the few times I see people in their natural element, you should try it sometime. It's at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I'm driving to the office. I look at people. Now, you know what? Don't, this is what I do because I don't want anybody out there wrecking, okay, and trying to sue me. But I watch people's faces and I'm looking at the dread. Or when they or when it's 5:30 in the evening, I'm looking over at the person. I'm looking at their face. I'm like, whoa. But outside of that, in their home, we are in performance mode. We perform so much. And it's like, where can we just be free in me? And that, man, it can crack you. And if you don't have that faith, if you don't have that foundation in your life, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's done. Because you will perform so much that you become a stranger to you. You don't even know who you are to yourself anymore.
You're just an actor. You're just an
Yeah.
actor in your own body.
So guess what? So I guess it's why we love movies,
Yeah.
because we can identify with it.
We can identify with parts. I mean, I've always loved movies that make me think. So
Mm-hmm.
I like the movies about challenge, about romance, about the things that make me think about parts of my life that may be challenging or exciting or interesting. And it's always been that way. But to your point about um that moment in the day. We all have those moments in our days. We
Right.
all have that moment where someone could see us and we could have dread on our face, because I don't care how great life is, I don't care how good your Instagram feed is, I don't
Right.
care how wonderful it was. There's a moment where you feel a little bit of that stress, a little bit of that overwhelm. Now, what you were getting at, I think, is in the current event status of today, the push is for people to not, it's one thing to acknowledge it. It's another thing to push through. It's another thing to actually, I find my biggest cheat code is something I call the habit of daily impact. And
Right.
it's my cheat code for life. And here's what it is. When I'm feeling awful, when I'm struggling, when something's not going right, when I'm having, which I don't believe in, but when I'm having a bad day, and I'm using air quotes for the listeners out there, the first thing I do is I go out and I start to do little acts of kindness. I
Yes.
hold the door for somebody. I
Yes.
smile. So when you're
Yes.
driving next to them, I smile at them. If I
Yes.
see dread on their face, I
Yes.
start to change my own mentality.
Yes. You listen, you know what you're doing? You're activating a spiritual law because it, sometimes, well, oftentimes, spiritually, in the Bible, in the Word, you give what you want. The Lord is like, it's like, Lord, uh, uh, I need $1,000. And then all of a sudden you're driving down the street and you get this prompt. Why don't you give to this person, give them $50? Lord, I'm depressed. And he's like, why don't you get on Facebook and start encouraging people? So when I activate that law, I start pushing out. Now all of a sudden, the Lord, the Spirit, God starts pouring in. But we get so jacked up and we miss it because our current the actual underbelly of our culture is me centric, is myopic, it's narcissistic, it's what is in it for me. So we see all these opportunities, but no, I'm sorry, we can't see the opportunities because all we're looking at is what can I get directly. Doesn't come to you if it can't get through you. Sometimes you got to give what you want. So you are 100% correct.
Yeah, and I think if we're teaching young people that to be weak, if we're teaching young people to not give what they want to receive, if we're teaching young people me, and we're preaching the opposite of what the truth is, and the truth is that's going to be empty. The truth
Yeah.
is, if we give of ourselves, good things will come. And that's some of the hardest lessons to teach young people now, because we, on the other side of those anxious feelings, on the other side of those challenges, is
Right.
success. We all feel that, but you've got to persevere and find that inner source, that has to look outward to gain it. Like, you're not getting it alone. You said the cog in the wheel when we started this conversation.
Right.
The
Right.
minute you made God the centerpiece of your life, everything else started to click. All
Mhm.
the other parts started to click. And it
Mhm.
took surrender. It took
Yeah.
surrender. It took you on
Yeah.
your knees
Yeah.
surrendering.
Yeah. It's if I could be really honest and really transparent, and a lot of people might not understand this, but it's okay. It's a slow death, right? It's a slow death, but on the other side of the death is life. So it's you died to yourself. You died to your agenda. You died to your wants and needs, and you surrender that unto, you're like, no, you can't do this. No, you have to repent. No, you have to surrender. No, you need to do. And the more you lay yourself down, the more you can live in him and through, and the more that little cog becomes the center of the wheel. And it is, it's a daily, no, it's a moment by moment journey. Uh, Most people don't get it because they're too busy trying to live.
Yeah. It's a little too much focus on living this life and not focused enough on a greater future life, which is
Right.
one of eternal life. And it's definitely an interesting dynamic. When you're thinking bigger, I will tell you it's a different frequency, folks. If you don't think this way, it's no problem. But the sooner that you do, the sooner that you sacrifice and give up, it's like having your house on fire and deciding what goods and things you want to rescue while risking your own life to rescue them, right? The
Mm,
key is to actually save yourself, you must give all of it away.
mm.
And so when you exit the building and you run out and you are giving all of yourself, you leave everything else behind. It's a huge, huge challenge. I mean, I could tell you the comforts of this world are good. I mean, I
Oh,
I I like to
it's so
fly in a
good.
I like to fly in a front seat.
Yeah,
I
me
like to
too.
drive a nice car. I like to eat good
Uh,
steaks. I mean, at
uh,
the end of the day, but all those things are just part of living. But when you're living a good life and you're doing all the right things, and to your point, if you're living at that 212, you're going to find yourself, I don't care how good life is, you're going to find yourself struggling, and it's going to allow you to remember those things. I mean, I love that. Now you spend a lot of time. I know you're a businessman and you run a security company. You're Columbus, Ohio, which I have some business in Columbus, so we'll have to connect when I'm up in
okay.
that
Okay.
area for sure.
It's on
Because
me.
I'm falling in love with Columbus. It's a great city. It's a great
Oh
city.
man, come on now. It's on me. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's the first city. When my son was 10 years old, he went to an open tryout at Columbus Crew for their U12
oh yeah. Okay.
team, and it was pre-COVID, and they have this huge Major League Soccer tournament for the bigger teams mainly, but they did it for the under 12s, and he went out with like 300 kids, tried out, made the top 10,
No way.
played on the team at Columbus Crew. So his first like really cool opportunity was to play on that team. Went to Georgia, went to Atlanta, played at Atlanta FC's big thing. All the teams from around the country came in, and this was the most interesting thing about that. And it was kind of like the young man that told you that you could be pro. When my son went to Columbus, Ohio, we had to go 10 straight weeks for the tryout. I think it was crazy.
Wow.
It was just to try out. It was difficult, and we're 10 hours away.
No
So it
way.
was like moving earth, wind, and fire just
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah,
up
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
so we get up to Columbus for multiple weeks in a row. He makes it. He goes down to Georgia. When he leaves, this is 2019, I guess, somewhere around there. He realized that he was one of the best players
Uh-huh.
on the field at all times, and that he had a different level he hadn't seen yet. And it
Wow.
changed everything about his discipline changed. He started working every day. He would go out every day and be like, I'm not I have more to give. I have better to get. I have
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it would frame the mindset. And so I'm very grateful to Columbus, Ohio, because that was a really great experience. Now COVID happened and a lot of the
Right.
opportunities that might have happened in that arena changed. It changed for a lot of people. But that mentality shifted my son and has put him where he is today. And so,
That's awesome.
cool city, big, beautiful place. And I stayed downtown a couple times and really enjoyed it. So I look forward to seeing you there. What are you doing? Give our listeners, as we start to wrap up,
Sure.
give our listeners the way to find you, to hear you, to watch you, to learn
Right.
from you? Because I know that's your mission.
Yeah. Website is ShawnHarperWins.com. And Facebook is Aaron Shawn Harper. Instagram is Shawn Harper Speaker. Okay. If you don't remember any of that, um, just go to search engine prompt and type in Shawn Harper. Yeah, a couple clicks, you'll find me. Speaking, that's my passion. Learning to just bless people. Okay, just speak life. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. One of the voice is the most powerful asset, the most powerful weapon uh, outside of faith. Faith, love, and hope, and then the voice, the word. The word is so powerful. Okay, I love doing that. I'm I'm actually moving into another space as well, and that's coaching, in particular, former athletes, and just 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 yeah. Uh, a lot of them aren't making that transition as well, a healthy transition. We're taught that once you leave sports, it's over. And if you can just convert that energy that you use playing sports into the next arena, you can dominate it because, as a former athlete, we're practicing at 5 o'clock in the morning before classes. We're playing games. We're traveling 2 or 3 days at a time in a hotel room, trying to do our homework. And we still have to, and we're still competing with that student who's at home and intramurals and PlayStation and at the lunch table and like all their spare time. And yet we can get so much more done. Let's just take that energy and let's convert it. Let's put it into the real world. Let's win with it. Helping athletes make transitions. I realized, and I'm still coming into the realization, is that a lot of winners in life are individuals who are able to make successful transitions. From when you're 12 and 13 years old, a lot of kids are getting in trouble. Well, guess what? They're going through puberty. It's a transition. When you graduate from college, it's a transition. When you're playing football, it's a transition. When the kids leave the house, it's a transition. We are getting stuck in our transitions. Okay. And so I would love to help people in transitions, especially when it comes to sport.
It's funny that you say that. And first of all, that's transitions are always challenging. And I've
Right.
specialized in my career on transitions and
Really?
working through. And yeah, we do a ton of mergers and acquisitions in my day job. And so we
You
acquire
do well, stop,
practices,
stop, stop, stop. You do what?
mergers and acquisitions. So we
Really?
acquire
Like,
businesses and then we help them in their transitions. And so
so
one of the things that's super cool, just to one quick point, what's super cool about it is the hardest part is the mental capacity that it takes to get through that transition, and just having somebody to guide them. The secret sauce is the coach. So
right,
I have a saying, and it's acknowledge, accept, action. And this is something that I use when I'm driving home after dropping my son, and I convinced my wife that it was a good idea, and he convinced us that he was ready to do it. I
right.
literally said to myself, all right, acknowledge it. All right, I got it. Accept it.
Look,
It is what it is.
okay.
Now it's action. What are we doing? And that's when I bought a condo right around the corner from where he's training so that I could
Wow.
actually be there more often.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold on, hold on.
yes, sir.
Acknowledge, accept, and what?
Action.
Action.
Action, because it's when we it's when we move, right? It's when we
Right.
move that it really is the most important step we can take is movement. And in transitions I find that to be the most
Right,
challenging. People get caught in how things used to be.
right.
This is how I always did it. This
Yes,
is what I was taught before. It doesn't
yes,
matter. This is where
yes,
you're moving towards.
yes. I just now I was speaking to somebody. They had mentioned that they often hear me upstairs rearranging furniture, right? So I have this mindset. I have this mindset that if I don't have something to build, I tear it down and rebuild it.
Rebuild it.
Yeah, I will. I have to have motion, and so I've been learning that whenever I start moving back and forth, I got there's another mountain I have to go conquer. I got to build something. I got to take because inaction for me is death. Okay, I have to be moving. Having, that's why I'm meeting this person next week to make sure I'm always moving in the right place, the right
Yeah.
location with that power. Now, I'm being very vulnerable and transparent in this moment because there are other people who are just like me. Yeah, you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, and that is one of the things I would love to leave with every entrepreneur. And it has taken me years to realize this, that it takes a team. You don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. You may have one or two good pieces. They got one or two good pieces, right? And you have to now build your team of individuals and have the humility, the capacity to yield, to respect that person's strength and be able to complement their weaknesses. And so when you look at some of the greatest people in history, they always had a team. You talk about Bill Gates, right? But no one talks about Paul Allen, his partner. You
Right.
talk about Warren Buffett, but you never talk about his partner, Charlie. That was his partner for 50 plus years. Mark Zuckerberg had 12 founders, the 10 to 12 founders around him. That was the team. You have to, even with music, Mick Jagger, you got Keith Richards, teams, you have to be able to have the humility to not dwell on your strength, but to complement that with other people to say, you know what, this is your weakness. I'm going to compliment you. There's your strength. You go run and we're going to win. That's what you need. That's what makes a team.
Well, look, we got Coach Shawn Harper closing us out today. I'm excited to have you here. I hope everybody enjoyed this. We will look forward to releasing it, and I appreciate you being here with us today.
Hey, life's a game, play to win.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.